The Anaheim Ducks finished third in the Pacific in 25-26, making the playoffs for the first time since 2018, beating the Edmonton Oilers in 6 games before losing to the Vegas Golden Knights in 6 games. The expectation for this team, Neil, I think I was a little bit more optimistic than you in the beginning in terms of this team taking their next step. During the offseason last year, they acquired Chris Kreider, Mikael Granlund, and Ryan Poehling. They were also able to hold on to Lukas Dostal, and in the process, traded longtime netminder John Gibson to Detroit. And I felt pretty good about this team in terms of the mix of youth and experience, but your concerns was really related to the youth of the defense with Jackson LaCombe, Olen Zellweger, Pavel Mintyukov, and Drew Helleson. But perhaps the thing that put it over the top for me was Pat Verbeek naming Joel Quenneville as the head coach.
Which was a great move, and somebody that Pat Verbeek knew very, very well from when they played together in Hartford and used to drive to practice together and talk hockey all the time. And obviously you can watch Joel Quenneville's coaching career to know that he's a winner. You did. I remember you saying Anaheim's going to make the playoffs. You said it right off the bat. I think I was more like they'll be knocking on the door for a wild card spot. And I was concerned about their young defense. However, Trouba and Gudas really came through as veterans for them, and LaCombe is a budding star.
And of course, they added John Carlson at the trade deadline. But as we look at the collective here of this season, they had a 12-point increase from 24-25. They started the season 11-3-1 and then went 0-8-1 at the end of the 25 calendar year, heading into 26. But then they had winning streaks of 7 games and 5 games and a 5-0-1 run, which offset a 2-6-2 finish. So they kind of staggered a little bit heading into the playoffs. Remember, they were actually atop the Pacific Division before settling for third.
They're a very inconsistent team, but that goes with some of the youth that they've got on the team. I mean, they've got some tremendous youth, both on defense and mostly up front forward. And you'll get those inconsistencies with guys that are new to the league and are younger, and that's what Anaheim went through this season.
You know how they say numbers never lie?
Yes.
Well, in this case, there is a case for numbers not exactly telling the entire story, because their goal differential did improve from -42 to -15. They were one of 2 teams to qualify for the playoffs with a minus goal differential, the Kings being the other, and I know that that is a real benchmark stat for you. They did score 52 more goals this year. But let's take a look at their special team index, and that is the combined rank of power play and penalty killing in relation to the rest of the teams in the NHL. So the best you can get is a 2 if you're first in both categories, and the worst you can get is 64 if you're last in both. In 23-24, their number was 56. Last season, 61, both of those years under Greg Cronin as head coach. And this year, that number only rose to 50. The goals against average in 24-25, 22nd, save percentage tied for 7th. And this year, goals against was 29th and save percentage 30th. So despite all of this negativity, the Ducks still managed to get in.
They did, and that's the Western Conference this season, right? I mean, they had such a weak Pacific Division, one that Connor McDavid coined as a pillow fight. It was a weaker conference this year, but you know what? The Anaheim Ducks, in my mind, are going to improve again next season.
I think one of the big things for them was for large portions of the season, they were able to outscore their mistakes. Last year, they only had 9 multi-goal scorers, and that was topped by Mason McTavish at 22. This year, 12 multi-goal scorers led by Cutter Gauthier with 41, Leo Carlsson with 29, and Beckett Seneca, a Rookie of the Year finalist with 23. And I think Jackson LaCombe showed in the playoffs why his salary is jumping from $925,000 to $9 million as he starts an 8-year deal next year. He had 58 points during the regular season, 10 and 12 playoff games, but only 1 assist in the series loss to Vegas. But overall, you see the youth on this team, and there is no reason for anything but optimism.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I'm saying. I mean, this Beckett Seneca, a surprise early pick by Pat Verbeek and the Anaheim Ducks back in the last draft that was held where everybody was together in the sphere. Even Beckett Seneca said he was surprised he went so high. Leo Carlsson is a great player for Anaheim. And Cutter Gauthier, who came into the league with a lot of problem areas and a lot of people wondering how he'd be because Philly had drafted him. He didn't want to go there. They ended up making a trade to Anaheim for Drysdale. But Gauthier is a star, 41 goals this season. And we've already talked about LaCombe and how good he is.
The work ahead for Pat Verbeek. And as we've said through all of these spring cleanings that we have done, every team has a different sort of profile. They have 6 picks in the 2026 draft. None in the first round. That pick is now Washington's in the John Carlson deal, and that was based upon the Ducks qualifying for the playoffs, which they did, so Washington will get that pick. Verbeek has $10.7 million in cap space leading up to July 1st, and that's only going to go up. But listen to their UFAs. John Carlson, who we just mentioned, who had 5 points and was a -1 against Edmonton, but only 1 assist and a -4 against the Golden Knights in the second round. Captain Radko Gudas and another captain, or a former captain, Jacob Trouba. Also, their fourth-line players, Ross Johnston, Jansen Harkins, and Jeffrey Viel, and goaltender Peter Mrazek. And their RFAs, Gauthier, Carlsson up front, Ian Moore, Mintyukov, Zellweger, and Tyson Hines on defense. So that's 13 names that I just rattled off there. So this is going to be a very intriguing summer to see how Verbeek continues to augment this team to take the next step.
And who he turns around and signs first and how much they get. Obviously, Cutter Gauthier and Carlsson are going to get king's ransom, and the defensemen are going to do pretty well as well. I would imagine that he would keep Jacob Trouba around, or he'd try to re-sign him, and he would certainly re-sign or try to re-sign the captain, Radko Gudas. Not so sure about Ross Johnson or what they think. Who knows? Jeffrey Viel was a great pickup by Pat Verbeek, and I would think he would want to keep him around. And the backup goalie, whether it's Mrazek or who it is, don't forget Mrazek came from Detroit for Gibson, probably with Stevie Yzerman in Detroit saying, well, I'll take Gibson, but you got to take Peter Mrazek back, which is usually what goes on. It's going to be a busy summer, as it always is, but for Pat Verbeek, with no first-round pick, he's got to get his young guys signed, and he's going to have to shore up the defense by signing Trouba and Gudas.
Mrazek ended the season on IR, and Ville Husso was the backup to Lukas Dostal. But, Neil, if you look at this team in the big picture, and we head into the summer, we see the progression, and from my seat, this is a lineup that needs some tweaking more than major pieces. So I think Verbeek is set up very well to make some real good moves during the course of the summer.
Yeah, and I talked to Ken Holland about the teams that are all around him, and Ken being the GM of the LA Kings. And he said, you know, Anaheim is headed for great days ahead. They're a really good building young team. They could own California, not the San Jose area, obviously, because they've got their own great young team. But they could own that LA metro area if they can stay where they are and keep ahead of the Kings. That's always a great rivalry between the two. And it looks for the time being like the Ducks are going to take the lead.